He didn't raise his voice when he said it, didn't dress it up, just sat across from me, hands still, and said, "I was wrong." That was it. 10 years of hearing the opposite. And that's what it came down to. I leaned back in my chair, watching him, waiting for the rest of it. It didn't come. No explanation. No qualifier. Just those 3 words sitting between us like they'd been waiting longer than either of us wanted to admit. That should have felt like a win. It didn't, because I realized, sitting there, I didn't need him to say it anymore. But he said it anyway. And somehow, that mattered more. Daniel had always been louder than me. Not just volume. Presence. He walked into rooms like he already knew how they'd respond to him. Conversations bent around him. People laugh quicker, listen longer. Even when he was wrong, he said things like they were already decided. I used to think that meant he knew something I didn't. I was 16 the first time he said it straight. We were in the garage. He was leaning against the workbench, watching me go over something on my laptop. "What are you even doing?" he asked. "Working on something," I said. He stepped closer, glanced at the screen for maybe 2 seconds, then shook his head. "This isn't going anywhere." I didn't look up. "It's just starting." He gave a short laugh. "That's what I mean." I tapped a few keys, saved the file, closed it halfway. "You don't even know what it is." "I don't need to," he said. "I can tell." That should have turned into an argument. It didn't, because he wasn't asking. He was deciding. It didn't stay in the garage. That was the part that stuck. It showed up at dinner. "You're still doing that thing?" he said one night, reaching for a glass. I kept my eyes on my plate. "Yeah." He nodded slowly, like he was confirming something to himself. "All right." Our mom glanced between us, then back at him. "What thing?" He shrugged. "Just something he thinks is going to work out." That landed differently in a room. Not loud, just placed. I picked up my fork, took a bite, didn't respond. That was the pattern. He'd say it like that. Casual. Certain. Like it wasn't even meant to hurt. Over the next few years, it got sharper. Not louder. More specific. "You're wasting time. That's not a real plan. You should think about something stable." Sometimes it was just the 2 of us. Sometimes it wasn't. That part didn't seem to matter to him. Once, at a small family gathering, someone asked what I was working on. I started to answer. Daniel cut in. "He's still figuring it out," he said. "Trying a few things." I stopped mid-sentence. He smiled like he was helping. That should have embarrassed me. It did. I just didn't show it. I tried pushing back once. We were sitting outside, late, no one else around. "You don't have to comment on everything I do," I said. He looked at me like I'd missed the point. "I'm trying to help you. By telling me it's not going to work. By being honest." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "You don't know that." He didn't hesitate. "I do. That's certainty." It wasn't aggressive. That would have been easier to deal with. It was calm. Like he'd already run the outcome, and I was just catching up. That should have made me argue more. It didn't. Because arguing with that kind of confidence doesn't go anywhere. So I stopped. Not immediately, but gradually. I stopped explaining what I was doing. Stopped answering when he asked. Stopped trying to get him to see it differently. I just kept working. Quietly. That was the shift. Not proving him wrong. Not winning anything. Just removing him from the equation. He didn't stop. That part's important. Even when I stopped engaging, he kept saying it. Different words. Same message. "You'll see. It's not going to land the way you think. Just don't say, 'I didn't warn you.'" I'd hear it, nod once, move on. No reaction. That seemed to bother him more than anything I could have said. Years passed like that. He built his life one way. Loud. Visible. Fast. I built mine another. Quiet. Slow. Consistent. We were in the same rooms. Same conversations. But not really in the same space. At some point, I realized something. He wasn't checking if I'd succeed. He was waiting to be right. That should have made me angry. It didn't. It made things simple. Because once I saw that, I stopped needing anything from him. Not approval. Not agreement. Not even acknowledgement. And once that happened, his voice stopped carrying the same weight. He kept saying I wouldn't amount to anything. I just stopped listening. And that's when things actually started moving. Once I stopped responding to him, things got quieter. Not around him. Around me. I didn't cut him off. Didn't avoid family dinners or gatherings. I still showed up, still sat across from him, still listened when he talked. I just stopped letting it land. That was the difference. I built everything without saying much about it. Early mornings, late nights, small wins that didn't look like anything from the outside. The kind of progress you don't announce because there's nothing to show yet. I remember sitting at my desk one night, screen glowing, room completely still. I just finished something that took weeks to get right. No one knew. I leaned back in the chair, rubbed my eyes, and let it sit for a second. That should have felt bigger. It didn't. It felt steady, like something that would matter later. Daniel didn't see any of that. What he saw was time passing, and no obvious results. That was enough for him. "You're still doing that?" he asked one afternoon, leaning against the doorway while I packed my bag. "Yeah." He nodded once. "All right." Same tone, same certainty. I zipped the bag, slung it over my shoulder. "You'll see," he added. I paused for half a second. "Maybe," I said. That was new, not defensive, not trying to convince him, just leaving it where it was. He watched me for a moment, like he was waiting for more. There wasn't any. I started getting traction about 3 years in. Nothing dramatic. A project that worked. Then another. Then something that paid more than I expected. I didn't tell him. Didn't feel the need to. Not out of spite. Just, it didn't involve him. At dinner one night, my mom mentioned something casually. "He's been busy lately," she said, nodding toward me. Daniel looked over. "With what?" I kept my focus on my plate. "Work." "What kind of work?" I took a sip of water, set the glass down. "Just projects." He studied me for a second. "Making money?" "Yeah." That landed differently. Not big, but noticeable. He leaned back slightly, like he was recalibrating something. "All right," he said. That was it. No follow-up. But I could feel it shift. Just a little. Over the next few years, the gap between what he expected and what was actually happening kept widening. Slow at first, then more obvious. I moved into a better place. Upgraded things without talking about it. Started turning down work instead of chasing it. People around us noticed. He did too. He just didn't say much about it. That was the pattern break. The commentary stopped. Not completely, but enough. We were at a small family gathering one evening when it became harder to ignore. Someone asked me about work again. This time I answered, briefly. Nothing detailed. Just enough. "I've been running a few things," I said. Daniel didn't interrupt. Didn't redirect. Just listened. That was new. Afterward, he pulled me aside for a second. "What exactly are you doing now?" he asked. I leaned against the wall, arms relaxed. "Same thing I've been doing." He frowned slightly. "That doesn't make sense." I gave a small shrug. "It doesn't have to." That should have annoyed him. It didn't. It just stayed there. He had his own momentum going. At least at first. Business doing well. People talking about him. Things moving fast in the way he liked. Loud. Visible. Immediate. For a while, it looked like he was right. That his way worked better. That mine was just slower to fail. I didn't compare it. Didn't need to. Because I wasn't building it the same way. Then things shifted for him. Gradually. Let's talk about new deals. More talk about things slowing down. A few mentions of problems that weren't supposed to happen. He brushed them off when they came up. "Just a rough patch," he said once. I nodded. Yeah. No commentary. No reversal of roles. That wasn't what I was there for. By the time it became obvious something was off, we weren't talking about it directly. You could just feel it. The way conversations moved around him differently. The way he filled space less. The way he listened more than he used to. That should have felt like balance. It didn't. It just changed the air between us. And somewhere in that shift, the gap closed. Not because I caught up, because the idea of it would end up right stopped being as certain as it used to be. The dinner wasn't planned around anything important. Just one of those nights where everyone happened to be in the same place at the same time. Same table. Same routine. But it felt different the second I walked in. Daniel was already there, sitting back in his chair, quieter than usual. Not withdrawn. Just not filling the room the way he used to. I nodded at him. Hey, he said. No edge. No comment. That was new. We sat down, plates passed around, normal conversation moving across the table. Work came up. It always did. This time, it didn't center on him. That was the first shift. Someone asked me a question. What have you been working on lately? I answered. Brief. Clear. No extra detail. Daniel didn't interrupt. Didn't redirect it. Just listened. That should have felt strange. It didn't. It felt overdue. At one point, our mom said something about how things have been going well for me. Seems like you found your rhythm, she said. I nodded once. Yeah. Daniel glanced over, then looked back down at his plate. No reaction. That silence carried more than anything he used to say. Later, someone asked him about his business. How's everything going there? He paused for a second. Not long. Just enough to notice. Working through some things, he said. Simple. No expansion. That was different. Before, he would have filled that space. Explained it. Controlled the way it landed. Now he just left it. I picked up my glass, took a sip, set it down. That should have felt like something balancing out. It didn't. It just changed the shape of the room. Dinner wrapped the way it always did. Plates cleared. Chairs pushed back. Small conversations breaking off into smaller ones. I stepped outside for a minute, more out of habit than anything else. Cool air. Quiet. I leaned against the railing, looking out at nothing in particular. A few minutes later, the door opened behind me. I didn't turn around. I knew it was him. He stepped out, let the door close softly. We stood there for a second without saying anything. Then he said, You got a minute? I nodded. Yeah. We moved a little further down the side of the house. Out of the light. Away from the noise inside. He didn't rush into it. That was the first sign something was different. Daniel never hesitated before speaking. Now he did. He sat down on the edge of a low step, elbows on his knees, hands loosely together. I stayed standing for a second, then leaned back against the wall. What's up? I asked. He looked at the ground, then up at me, like he was deciding how to say something he wasn't used to saying. That should have made me brace for another version of the same conversation. It didn't, because something about him had shifted, not broken, just quieter. I've been thinking, he said. I nodded once. Okay. Another pause. He ran a hand across the back of his neck, then let it fall. I've said a lot of things over the years. I didn't respond. He wasn't asking for help. He was working through it. I was sure about how things were going to go, he added. I watched him waiting. No interruption. No correction. Just letting him get there. That was new for both of us. He looked up at me then. Really looked. Not like he was measuring anything. Just seeing me. That should have felt strange. It didn't. It felt like the first honest moment we'd had in years. For a second, it seemed like he might stop there, like he might pull it back into something safer. He didn't. He sat with it. And then, he said the three words I hadn't heard once in 10 years. I was wrong. He said it without looking away this time. No smile. No edge. No version of it softened into something else. Just direct. I stayed where I was leaning against the wall, letting it sit. For a second, I thought there might be more. An explanation. A reason. Something to fill the space after it landed. It didn't come. That should have felt like a win. It didn't. Because there was nothing to win. I pushed off the wall slowly, stepped a little closer, not all the way. Just enough. He didn't move. Didn't try to read my reaction. Didn't try to manage it. That was new. For 10 years, he'd controlled every version of this conversation. Now he was just in it, waiting. I nodded once. I know. It came out simple. Not sharp. Not quiet in a way that hid anything. Just true. That should have sounded like payback. It didn't. Because I wasn't correcting him. We were just saying the same thing from different sides. He let out a small breath, like something had shifted in him once it was said out loud. I kept thinking I had it figured out, he said. I leaned back slightly against the wall again, arms loose. Yeah, I thought I knew how things worked, he added. What actually mattered. I glanced down for a second, then back at him. You were confident. He gave a short nod. Too confident. That was the closest he'd come to admitting it before. We sat in it for a second. No rush to move on. No attempt to turn it into something lighter. Just letting it exist. That was new for both of us. I didn't think you'd stick with it, he said after a moment. I shrugged slightly. I wasn't doing it for you. I know that now. That line landed differently. Not defensive, just adjusted. I picked at a loose thread on my sleeve, then stopped. For years, I'd imagined this moment. Well, I'd say if he ever admitted it. There were versions where I pushed back. Versions where I listed everything he got wrong. Versions where I made him sit in it the way I had. None of them showed up. That should have surprised me. It didn't, because I didn't need them anymore. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees again. I said a lot of things I shouldn't have, he said. I nodded. Yeah. No need to soften it. No need to expand it either. That was enough. I thought I was pushing you, he added. Like, helping in a way. I let out a quiet breath. It didn't land like that. I can see that now. We held eye contact for a second. No tension, just acknowledgement. A small breeze moved through, barely noticeable. I shifted my weight, glancing back toward the house for a second, then back at him. Inside, I could hear voices. Dishes. Normal noise. Out here, it felt separate, like a conversation that didn't need an audience. You didn't say anything back, he said. About what? Everything, he said. All those years. I thought about that for a second, then shook my head. There wasn't anything to say. He frowned slightly. Why not? I looked at him. Because you weren't asking. That landed. He sat with it. Didn't push back. Didn't try to reframe it. Just took it in. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Because something had shifted. Not in what was said, in how it was being heard. For the first time, it didn't feel like we were on opposite sides of something. No one was trying to prove anything. No one was waiting to be right. We were just sitting there in the same space, looking at the same version of what happened. That was new. I should have listened, he said. I nodded once. Yeah. No emphasis. No pause for effect. Just the truth again. We didn't move right away. Didn't rush back inside. The conversation didn't need a clean ending. It had already done what it needed to do. And for the first time in 10 years, he wasn't talking at me. He was talking to me. We didn't go back inside right away. Neither of us seemed in a rush to break it. Daniel stayed seated on the step, hands loosely together, looking out toward the street like he was still catching up to what he'd just said. I leaned against the wall, quieter than before. Not guarded, just present. He exhaled slowly. I didn't realize how much I was talking over you, he said. I glanced at him. You were. He gave a small nod. Yeah. No defense. That was still new. For a second, neither of us spoke. Not awkward. Just space. The kind we'd never allowed before. I kept waiting for you to push back, he added. I shook my head slightly. Wouldn't have changed anything. Maybe not, he said. But I thought you would. I picked at the edge of my sleeve, then let it go. I stopped needing you to hear me. That landed. He looked over, really looked this time. Yeah, he said quietly. I can see that. That should have felt like distance. It didn't. It felt like clarity. He leaned back slightly, resting his hands behind him. So what happens now? He asked. I let out a short breath, not quite a laugh. I don't know. That was honest. For once, I wasn't trying to map it out. He nodded slowly. Yeah. No follow-up. No attempt to define it. That was the pattern break. I meant it, he said again after a moment. I know. I wasn't just saying it because things are different now. I looked at him. You don't have to explain it. He held that for a second, then nodded. Okay. We stayed there a little longer. Not talking much. Just adjusting to the fact that the conversation had actually happened. That it didn't turn into anything else. No argument. No shift back into old roles. Just done. Eventually, I pushed off the wall. You coming back in? I asked. In a minute. I nodded once. All right. I started toward the door, then paused. Turned back slightly. He was still sitting there, looking out, quieter than I'd ever seen him. That should have felt strange. It didn't. It felt right. Inside, the room was the same. Same voices. Same movement. Same noise. But it didn't feel the same. Not to me. I grabbed a glass of water, leaned against the counter, listening without really engaging. Something had shifted. Not around me. In me. A few minutes later, Daniel came back in. No announcement. Just walked in and took his seat like nothing had happened. But it wasn't the same. He didn't interrupt anyone. Didn't take over conversations. Just listened. That was the difference. At one point, someone asked me something across the table. I answered. Simple. Daniel didn't step in. Didn't reframe it. Didn't add anything on top. He just let it sit. That should have been normal. It wasn't. It was new. Later, as things started winding down, he stood near the door while people were getting ready to leave. I grabbed my jacket, stepped up beside him. We didn't say anything for a second. Then he said, "Drive safe." Yeah, I said. You too. That was it. No weight behind it. No unfinished tension. Just normal. That should have felt small. It didn't. Because for the first time, there was nothing under it. No history pushing through the surface. No version of him waiting to correct something. Just a sentence. I stepped outside, pulled my jacket on, and headed toward my car. The air felt cooler than before. Clear. I unlocked the door, sat down, hands resting on the steering wheel for a second before starting the engine. I thought about what he said. I was wrong. 10 years. Reduced to 3 words. That should have felt like closure. It didn't, because nothing about it erased what happened. It just changed what came next. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything anymore. Not to him. Not to anyone. The next time I saw him, nothing was announced. No follow-up conversation. No reference to what happened outside. We just moved differently. We met for coffee a week later. Not planned as anything important. He texted, "Free tomorrow?" I was. We picked a place halfway between us. Quiet. Not crowded. I got there first, sat near the window, phone on the table, untouched. When he walked in, he spotted me right away. Gave a small nod. Hey. We didn't hug. Didn't hesitate either. Just sat down like we'd done it 100 times before. But we hadn't. Not like this. He ordered first. Black coffee. Same as always. I picked something without really thinking about it. We sat there for a second after the drinks came, both of us holding the cups like we were buying time. That should have been awkward. It wasn't. Just new. So, he said, glancing at me, then down at the table. "How's everything?" "Good," I said. "Steady." He nodded. "Yeah." No follow-up questions. No pressure to explain more than I wanted to. That was different. We talked about small things first. Work, traffic, a mutual friend who had moved recently. Normal conversation, but it didn't feel like we were avoiding anything. It felt like we were building something. Carefully. At one point, he leaned back slightly, looking at me a little longer than before. I didn't realize how much of my personality was wrapped up in being right, he said. I took a sip of my coffee, set it down. "Yeah." He let out a short breath. "That's not a great thing to build around." I shook my head. "No." That should have been where I added something. I didn't. He didn't need me to. "I think I was waiting for you to fail," he said. Simple. No hesitation. I met his eye. I know. That line again. Not sharp. Just shared. He nodded slowly, like he was confirming it to himself. Yeah. We sat with that for a second. No discomfort. Just truth. A woman at the next table laughed at something, breaking the quiet for a moment. I glanced over, then back. The room felt normal. That mattered, because nothing about this felt like a confrontation anymore. I didn't expect things to turn out like they did, he added. I leaned back slightly. I didn't either. That wasn't deflection. It was just accurate. He looked at his hands for a second, then back up. "I don't think I ever said anything when things started working for you." "You didn't." He nodded. I noticed. I just didn't say it. That sounds right. That should have sounded like criticism. It didn't. Because we weren't keeping score. We sat there a little longer, conversation moving in small pieces. Not forced. Not deep in a heavy way. Just honest. At one point, he said, "You handled it better than I would have." I frowned slightly. "Handled what?" "Everything," he said. "All the stuff I said." "You didn't react." I picked up my cup, turned it slightly. I just stopped listening. He gave a small, almost amused exhale. "Yeah. That bothered you more," I added. He looked at me, then nodded. "It did." That should have felt like a win. It didn't. It just explained something that had already passed. We finished our coffee without rushing. No one checked the time. No one tried to extend it past what it was. When it ended naturally. Outside, we stood near the door for a second. People moved past us, heading in and out. Normal flow. No pause for us. This was good, he said. Yeah. He nodded once. I'd like to do it again. I thought about that for a second. Okay. No hesitation. No conditions. Just okay. We went our separate ways after that. No dramatic ending. No need for one. Things didn't turn perfect. That's not how it works. There were still moments where he slipped into old habits, said something with a little too much certainty, framed things like he already knew the answer. But now, he caught it. Sometimes mid-sentence. Sometimes after. He'd stop, adjust, move on. That mattered. I changed too. Not in a big, visible way. Just less guarded. I didn't need to stay neutral all the time anymore. Didn't need to filter everything down to nothing just to avoid giving him something to push against. If I disagreed, I said it. Calm. Clear. And that was it. No escalation. One evening, months later, we were at another family dinner. Same table. Same setup. Different energy. Someone asked him about something work-related. He answered briefly, then stopped. Didn't expand. Didn't perform. Just answered. That should have been unremarkable. It wasn't, because I knew what it used to look like. Later, he asked me a question. Simple. What do you think about that? I looked at him for a second. You want my actual answer? Yeah. I gave it. Straight. He listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't correct. Just took it in. That was the shift. We're not close in the way people expect. Not suddenly best friends. Not trying to make up for everything at once. It's slower than that. More deliberate. More real. For 10 years, he told me I wouldn't amount to anything. And for a long time, I thought the only way that would end was if I proved him wrong in a way he couldn't ignore. I did that. But that's not what changed things. It was 3 words. Simple. Late. But real. I was wrong. That should have closed everything. It didn't. Because nothing about those 10 years disappeared. But did something else. It removed the version of him I had been reacting to. And it removed the version of me that needed to prove anything back. We don't talk about it much now. We don't need to. It already happened. It already shifted things. Sometimes I think about that moment outside. The way he said it. No performance. No audience. Just him finally saying something true without trying to control how it landed. For a long time, I thought words didn't matter. That actions were the only thing that counted. I still believe that. Mostly. But sometimes, 3 words from the right person land in a place nothing else could reach. I didn't need him to say it anymore. That was the point. But when he did, it changed how I carried everything that came before. Nothing got erased. Nothing got rewritten. It just settled. And for the first time, we were just 2 people sitting across from each other. Not proving anything. Not waiting to be right. Just talking.